So I just had to share this video with you guys today because occasionally I come across a non-sync, non-music related video that perfectly summarizes or encapsulates something that I believe, but I just couldn't put the words around it. And I think this video, this is from Alex Becker. He's not a music guy, he's not a sync guy, he's more of a software developer, kind of an entrepreneur. Highly recommend his channel. He's crude, he's got a foul mouth, he's funny, and that's why I like him. And I think most of all, though, he is a very transparent and honest guy and really talks about what he has found has really worked for him in his career. And so I do follow what he does, and I do appreciate many of his videos. I don't watch every single one, but this one had a particular theme which I think perfectly encapsulates the idea that I've had in terms of, you know, always reminding you guys to not get so lost in the weeds of, well, I got to go watch another tutorial. I got to go find another YouTube video about this. I better read another blog or a book or an article about something with sync before I get started. It's kind of this constant procrastination disguised as educating ourselves of like, I just need to learn a little bit more before I get started because I don't want to look like a newbie. Like, I don't want to look like a person who doesn't really have it all figured out. So I get that, but let me just actually play for you. It's about 1 minute of this one video. I'll link the full video below. It's definitely worth a watch. But this is the key point of this entire video, where he's basically, talking about his experience and how he had to go through what I've always called the suck phase, but he calls it something else. But just watch this 1 minute real quick.
So the point of this video that I think you can probably deduce from now is you have to accept being cringe. You have to look at something, and if you're not feeling cringe doing it, if you're not feeling uncomfortable, you're not going in the right direction. When you are in these states where you're cringe and you're putting yourself on stage and actually putting yourself to be judged, this is when your growth is maximized. If you look at every big successful motherfucker you look up to in any type of realm, whether it's sports, whether it's money making, whatever the fuck it is, every single one of them has these little videos laying around the internet where they look cringe as fuck and everyone's like, hey, look at this dork. I would never be embarrassed like that. Thank God I just sit in my 9-to-5 job with my chronic college debt and I never had to embarrass myself. And the truth is, if you don't go and accept being cringe, you don't accept being a clown a little bit early on and getting through that sludge, that shitty period where you're the inexperienced newcomer who doesn't know what you're doing. If you can't accept doing that, guess what? For the rest of your life, you're just going to be a clown by default.
Okay, so he goes on and on in that. You guys get the idea for his personality and maybe why I actually do really, really enjoy his content. But it's true. I mean, what he's saying is absolutely true. And I definitely know that in our industry, especially as I've been coaching you guys and encouraging you to directly submit your music off to libraries, not use middleman pitching services or go for the safe route of just uploading your tracks to some platform and hoping that sort of lands in the right hands. Yeah, that's a safer route in terms of it doesn't feel as like you're not going to face direct rejection that way. But as he just said here, he calls it the sludge, factor, and I call it the suck phase. It's that process of going through and making yourself vulnerable, doing something very scary, putting yourself out there, approaching your very first library for the very first time, maybe, or maybe even second or third. I remember even in my career, I'd already had 1 or 2 libraries I'd partnered with, but thinking about reaching out to new companies, I always went back to my sort of, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I don't really deserve to have another library. I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs in my head because I was also wanting to avoid the beginner phase again, right? And just kind of that sort of making myself vulnerable and exposing myself to potentially being rejected or ignored or just passed over, right? But I totally agree with Alex here that this is where growth happens, right? And this is where you get stronger. This is where you get smarter. This is where you become more wise. And this is where you start to develop your thicker skin and you develop a healthier, more resilient mindset. You have to go through a couple of rejections and ignores and not knowing all the answers, learning something and going, okay, that was uncomfortable. Wasn't quite sure I had my footing correct, but look at me. Like I just figured out the answer, or I just asked for clarity and I sort of somehow made it through to the end point where like, this is actually now working. The reason why I strongly see this with, kind of just pattern recognition over coaching many producers over the years is this big monumental fear of being a newbie, and not wanting to get through the suck phase and not wanting to have music that's not perfectly ready for sync yet. So, a lot of producers, again, they get lost in having to get more tutorials, more training, got to read something, got to do this, got to do that. When actually the antidote to all of that is exactly what you heard in this video, which is just do the work, put it out there, allow it to be criticized, allow it to be judged, allow yourself to be in a vulnerable place, and you're going to feel uncomfortable. That is going to feel very, very scary and weird. But that is where you're going to grow the most. And he has a really good point in this video to basically say, unless you're feeling that from time to time in your career, you're definitely stagnant. Like, you're not growing at all. If you're not occasionally putting yourself in fairly uncomfortable, tight, scary, challenging, vulnerable situations. Just personal anecdote, in terms of just developing my very first app, Sync Match, absolutely was, and probably still am in many ways, in the suck phase of learning how to develop an app, right? The very first version of that app that I released early to members is way different than the app that is now available in terms of all the upgrades, all the benefits, all the changes, all the sort of fixes, the bug fixes that we've implemented throughout the last couple of months. My first app, I think most people probably wouldn't have released because it just wasn't, quote unquote, perfect. And yet I knew in order for me to continuously make this perfect and to get better at this, I have to put this software in the hands of real people, real paying customers to know, is it useful? Is it not useful? Where are the bugs? What is it getting completely wrong and totally missing? Because I can do my own internal tests, I can do some beta testing, but it's not until it's like more widely in people's hands you really get a sense of what's happening with your software, right? And you better believe, like, every time I get an email like, Jesse, my results are totally off. I'm getting this and this. What gives? What is the point of this app if I can't get accurate results? And you better believe my internal dialogue was like, see, you don't know what you're doing. You never should have gotten into making an app. You have no business being a software developer or doing auto tagging or any of this kind of stuff. You should have just left this alone. This was none of your business to begin with. And then just kind of letting that thought go and realizing this is part of the suck phase. I have to suck at this for a while. And guess what? Rather than being self-defeated, I learned and figured out every single time I got one of those, I turned it into an opportunity to, like, I'm going to learn something. I'm going to decide and figure out what is broken in the app so that now I can get a clear fix for it, right? I can basically better understand how to make this app even more resilient. So these tiny little arrows coming at me actually are all just showing where the weaknesses are. I can patch up every single one of these little holes now, and this becomes a much more resilient piece of software, and that is going to continue on forever. Like, I don't plan on ever just being done with the app and never implementing new data or upgrades. So for all of you, though, you're going to be in various places in your sync licensing career, and it is scary to put yourself out there to submit your music for the first time or to basically just start composing music, right? Even though you don't know exactly how to make your music competitive with what you hear, in the industry. But there is no getting around what you just heard today. There is a suck phase. There's a sludge phase. There is just sort of a very uncomfortable phase that everybody has to go through to get to the other side, to where you start to feel more competent and confident in your skills. And so one reframe that I would share with you guys today is that if you're still procrastinating something, either just making music or pitching that first album off or whatever it is, just keep in mind every day that you don't do the thing that you know you need to do is you're basically extending your suck phase for much longer, because your suck phase will come for you. It's going to be in your future. And it's included right now because you're kind of in that sort of gut wrenching. I know I should do this and I feel uneasy that I haven't done it. You're kind of in turmoil already right now, but you haven't even started the work yet. So why would you let multiple days or weeks or months pass extending your suck phase for much longer when it doesn't need to be that long? If you do the thing you know you need to do today, just get started. Don't be an expert, don't be perfect, but just get something started and move forward. Then your suck phase begins today, right? And that's going to drastically shorten it in the future, as opposed to if you don't start today, you're guaranteed to extend your suck phase for months, maybe years, maybe indefinitely, if you just never do the thing that you know you need to do. So hopefully this is useful. I occasionally share these videos that are non-sync related because I think they really do share and kind of really tap into a sort of an overall life and business philosophy that I do essentially share, and I think has really rang true for my life and career. So I hope you found this useful.